Well, hello, witches. Welcome to another episode of Maidens and Magic. You are down with me, Anarchy. And don't you fret, mon chéri. You will see my pretty little face actually plenty in this episode. I kind of forget and I start talking to the camera directly for quite a period of time here. So, in the interest of time right now, I'm just going to do the intro like this. This week's episode is about heavenly creatures. 1994 movie by Peter Jackson. Really one of my favorite movies, and definitely the movie that started off a lifelong obsession with Kate Winslet. You're gonna have to hear all about it. It also does star the quite talented Melanie Lynskey, who I like a lot. Props to her. And I do talk about her as well. But definitely not as much as I talk about Kate Winslet. That's just what it is. It's you're here, deal with it. You're here, you're queer. You might not be queer, but you're here anyway. And then we're going to talk about Folie, deux, which is a shared psychosis or a shared madness, which is expressed pretty well in this movie. Or at least I think so. Is it strictly magic? I don't know. You tell me. It's a nice line between magic and madness, and I love to walk it. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this one right away. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Alrighty, let's get into the maidens here, shall we? Now we are going to start with Melanie Lynskey. Who, listen, I really do like her. I really do. I've fully already admitted that this is going to be biased. It just is. Melanie, girl, I totally respect you. I mean, I really do. I don't have the feelings about you that I have for Kate. And I can't help that, man. It's not you, girl. Anyway, so she was born, wow. She was born in New Zealand. She does have that accent. I have such an affinity for the New Zealand, for the Kiwi accent. I'm not sure where I'm not, I guess because I knew a couple of New Zealanders when I was New Zealanders. Well, I was living in Japan, and they were great people. I'm gonna say she's 43. Not that that matters. She's been active for a while. I'm gonna point out here that she has been married twice. And I'm going to have to say, this guy, she was married to this guy, which if you've seen It's Always Sunny in Philly, oh my God, he's a total freak. I find him strangely attractive. I don't know what happened in their relationship, but she moved on from him to Jason Ritter, who I also love. This is the son of John Ritter, of course, who is in Three's Company, if you're old enough to know what that is. He is amazing in Another Period. So she obviously really likes the funny, and they have a kid together. I think they're engaged. I don't know if they're married, but I think they're engaged. Anyway, she also, Melanie also, this is what's so magical about Heavenly Creatures is they went through this exhaustive casting process, and they wanted a New Zealander to play the part. I know for Kate Winslet's part for Juliet, I think she went up against 175 other actresses auditioning for the part. And I think I didn't get as much information about Melanie, but they really were trying to find women who like kind of looked close enough the part too. And so anyway, but for both of them, each of them had done a little bit of television, but this was the first feature film that either of them had done, and they just do such an amazing job. So I'm a huge fan. And the one thing I like about Melanie is she's done a lot of indie films. She was in one of my favorite, I don't know, this is just such a great film, but I'm a cheerleader. I also love Natasha Lyonne. It's a great movie. RuPaul. I always forget that fucking RuPaul is in that movie, and then I'm like, oh yeah, great film. She has been in this one here I saw recently too, that she did with Elijah Wood, was strangely compelling. It was a very odd film, offbeat. And she was in another one too that I can't remember. Hold up, where it was like, wait for it. It was called, it was like the whole fucking, but I'm a cheerleader crew. It was Clea Duvall, and I'm not finding it here right now. Oh, yes, it is this one. So check this out. In the intervention, it is her, Natasha Lyonne, Jason Ritter is in there too, and Clea Duvall, who also is the girlfriend, like the love interest. But you know who she is. You guys know who Clea Duvall is, right? Anyway, the movie wasn't like, oh yeah, and I don't know, I never know how to say, is it Alia Shawkat? I don't really know I should have practiced saying her name, but the chick from Arrested Development is in there too, and actually is one of the best parts of the movie. It's okay. So really, she's done quite a bit of work. Unfortunately, the show that she's best known for is that stupid 2.5 Men show, which, sorry, not sorry. I could never fucking stand that show. I've been forced to watch a few. It's crazy popular in Germany. So is The Big Bang Theory and How I Met Your Mother. That's like their jam in Bavaria anyway. I have no idea how that happened, but there you go. I even tried to watch it in German. Well, anyway, I've sat through a couple of episodes, and I will say she's incredibly good. She's incredibly good in everything that she does. And just real quick, this is gonna bug me. There she is, Clea Duvall. So you know who she is too. But yeah, it was really nice seeing them together. And actually, Natasha Lyonne, they've been in a few things together. They seem to keep Natasha Lyonne and Clea Duvall. There's a couple other movies, but anyway, we're talking about Melanie Lynskey. Not Kate Winslet, not yet. Kate, wait. Yeah, so that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it pretty much there with Melanie. I appreciate your work so much. I really do. I'm glad she's in the business. I'm glad she's in the world. Honestly, there's not a lot of information about her on here anyway. Really, in my opinion, worth sharing. Continued career project. Yeah, I don't know. She's a character actress. She's good. She's really a solid actress, and she's a pescatarian. Wait, what's misophonia? She suffers from misophonia. Oh my God, I might have that. It's a disorder of decreased tolerance to specific sounds or their associated stimuli that's been characterized using different language and methodologies. I think I have this too. Melanie, we have so much in common. It's true. It's really true. All right, I am going to pause there. Actually. All right, witches, let's get into some Kate Winslet, shall we? Kate Winslet is another one like Gillian Anderson who has the Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Award. Excellent. I will never be able to think of it as anything other than that. And it's funny because I'm pretty sure that it's a fairly prestigious award. She was born in 1975 for what it's worth. She was born in England, here in what I believe is pronounced Reading, but watch it be Reading. I don't know. I think it's Reading. I'm not too sure. She was born, so it is here in South England, west of London. And all I can really say about that place is Kate has the English accent that every American is just stupid for. It's so polished, and it's just gorgeous. She really has a gorgeous accent, and I wish Well, I know she's done a lot of period pieces and stuff where she hasn't had to drop it, but she's also done a lot of American films where she has had to drop it. I could listen to her talk all day. I'm I'm just a sucker for accents in general. Anyway, oh my goodness. Kate has done a lot of movies. I'm going to highlight to you my favorites, starting with Heavenly Creatures. I'm going to tell you, I have not seen the vast majority of these, and I've never seen Titanic. I have a weird aversion when there's an actress that I really like. I have a deep aversion to watching their most popular stuff. I don't know why that is. It was the same thing I said with Laura Dern, how I've never seen any of the Jurassic Park. Which one of these is the one with Harvey Keitel? I think it's Holy Smoke, I think. I have seen was okay. Quills was pretty good. I don't know. I had a slight, he's a good actor, but not totally easy to watch in a sexy way. My favorites though are definitely Heavenly Creatures, and then I mean, you can really just look at her all day. She's so fantastic. And I just think getting more gorgeous with age. My favorites, this is her as Belle de Jour. Sorry, scrolling through. At the Eternal Clementine here as Clementine in The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I thought she was amazing. I completely fell in love with her all over again. Also, the dressmaker is a really good, she plays kind of this femme fatale. Look how fucking posh and polished. She's so well costumed in this movie. And then, most recently I did see Ammonite, which I'm going to talk about for a little second. I just want to say that this is, another one of her lesbian. And before I even get into the lesbian movie, I want to point out this quote right here. What the fuck was I doing working with Woody Allen and Roman Polanski? Yes, she did work with both Woody Allen and Roman Polanski and has expressed regret over that. You make mistakes, but you can't turn back the clock. Anyway, on to Ammonite. She stars opposite Saoirse. Here she is. You know who this is. Saoirse Ronan. Yes, she's a pretty brilliant actress. Apparently, some of the big lesbian scenes were actually shot on Saoirse's 25th birthday. And Kate is 45. So we've got a solid 20-year difference there, which could have been awkward or taboo or any number of things, and it's not. And the reason I think it's not is Kate and Saoirse, according to them both, I've read a couple of articles on this, really worked closely together. I know. How closely, you might ask. I'm actually not sure. I love to speculate on this one. I'm not gonna lie, but they really had. Apparently, this character is based on a real historical character, a paleontologist who was underrated and had her work stolen from her on multiple occasions because, well, she was a female, and it was turn of the century times. And yes, they have her looking very, very humbled here, I guess. She's not the most sexy look in the world for Kate, but she's so beautiful in the film. And I thought there's a picture of them together, and they have a very sweet relationship. But Kate in particular said, I'm going to choreograph these. In one article I read, she herself choreographed all of the sex scenes between these two women. She's had experience with female and female scenes in the past, and she actually had this sense of like who these women were and how they would fuck in this time with like corsets and stuff. And she said specifically she didn't want it to be all like soft touches and just a bunch of like bullshit. She's like, no, these women would actually fuck. And Yeah, anyway, and they do. It is one of the I mean, it's a full like sit on my face kind of thing. It's brief, but it's not period piece sex. Like it's not your it's not delicate. It's not like throw down either. It's still tasteful. Anyway, she said that she choreographed, in another article it said they choreographed the scenes together and worked on them with each other until they felt comfortable. I'm going to leave that alone, and I'm going to show you some pictures of Kate Winslet looking very gender bendy here. Kate Blanchett too, but yeah, Kate Winslet here in this famous, I think this, I just don't know what happened there. That was not my intention. Oh, but that is really lovely. That's gorgeous. God, that jacket is super well tailored. Okay. But what I was trying to get to here, I think this is from Vogue. I don't remember. I had a copy of this for a long time. Anyway, she is fantastic. She was born in England. She's done lots of films that I like a lot. I think she's incredibly talented. And I will say this, somebody, journalist in here said, and it's in here somewhere, said that she is considered by, no, it said that she was considered by many journalists as one of the best actresses of her generation. And I actually completely agree. I think she's amazing. Yeah. And as far as being like, I don't know, all the period pieces and stuff, I haven't seen a lot of those. I know that she's well known for them and a lot of people really appreciate them. There's a lot of stuff in here that I haven't seen. As I'm scrolling through, I'm just realizing how much of her work I'm completely unfamiliar with. But again, I do kind of tend to shield myself from things. I just know if I really like an actress, if at some point I'm going to see a movie where I'm like, ugh, man, boner kill, it's just going to crush it for me. And I don't know. I'm trying to preserve my love for her, so there's an integrity to it to keep it intact. She actually is, she's been in some pretty big stuff, but she's been in some real gritty indie stuff too. I will say another interesting thing about her that I did not know until reading this was, I guess she began when she was 15. She began a romantic relationship with this other actor, writer, Stephen Treaty. I don't know. I'm not sure how to say his name, y'all. It's right here. You fucking try. Anyway, he was 12 years older than her, which is one of those things where it's like, so that meant, he was 27, which 27 and a 15-year-old, I always kind of want, look, again, age differences. I don't really care so much about age. I don't care about your gender. Why should I give a fuck about your age? It doesn't really matter. On the other hand, there is something a little untoward about I don't understand a 27-year-old dude wanting to bang a 15-year-old. I'm going to shut up about that though. Because again, I've said it before, I have dated someone 15 years my junior too. She does a lot of good work with philanthropy. I'm going to skip to that and say that she's worked a lot with the Afghan relief organization, the National Literacy Trust. She's a big PETA supporter, or she was. I know that she narrated that video for PETA in 2010 about Folie, which is fun. That one's kind of weird to me because she's not a vegetarian, and it's like kind of like, well, no, we can. Now, granted, foie is, I believe is it duck or goose? Goose. Yeah, and the way they fatten it, I've heard, and you've probably heard too, is they keep the duck or goose in a cage so that they can't move, and they force feed it continuously until the liver gets engorged and fat, which is pretty fucking gross. But here's another thing: maybe just don't eat meat. Okay, I'm done. But I appreciate your efforts, Kate. She also has worked with various children's foundations. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say about this guy, I totally forgot. This guy that she did that she was with, he did die of bone cancer. And I thought this was interesting. She skipped the premiere of Titanic to attend his funeral, which really, I think, seems like, well, yeah, duh, as a human, but as an actor in Hollywood, that's a big fucking deal. Titanic was a big fucking deal. And the premiere of any movie is a big fucking deal. So I think that says a lot about her character, to be honest. Yeah, she also speaks out against homophobia in Hollywood, which I can't even believe is still a thing. Like, really, is that still a thing? It kind of blows my mind. But it is, it really is. Lots of good, I'm umming a lot today, y'all, I'm sorry. And I'm also still having a really bad allergy attack. Something in DC is trying to kill me. Anyway, another quick look through her IMDb here. Yeah, there's so many things. I do want to, there are a few here that I want to see. I really have wanted to watch the Mildred Pierce and thing that she's doing and currently. And, or is that current? No, Mildred Pierce was, sorry, 2011 is not currently. Well, you know, anyway, she's done some theater, some, you know, she can see the diversity in her IMDb or in her, you know, resume here. But I feel like I could talk about Kate a lot. You know, it's not even really, just really talking about how much these two roles in here, these two in particular, this one and Heavenly Creatures, affected me. They really did. I really, I do so love her. And now the computer has a mind of its own today, apparently. Let's see what it wants us to see. Okay, a picture. Good for us. All right. What else can I say about Kate? I would recommend any of these films. Ammonite, forewarning, is a little slow, but it is a really good story and they really create a mood. I quite enjoyed it. If one of the ones I thought that was the most underrated, one that I didn't really hear about, was this one, The Dressmaker. I would recommend as well. All right, I'm going to stop with Kate right now. Yeah. All right, so let's talk first about the 1994 movie, the biographical drama film directed by Peter Jackson. Wait, what? Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson, you might query? To which I would answer, yes, the same. I just have to say and this was, I think, well, let's just check. I'm pretty sure this is one of the, he's a treasure. I'm pretty sure this is one of his earliest works. And let's just take a little look. Oh, this is only showing his awards. Okay. Oh no, Heavenly Creatures, 95. This is one of his earliest things. And I have to say, the guy, as it turns out, he's really good at what he does. I mean, and he clearly loves the New Zealand landscape. It's so bucolic, and there are these big, expansive scenes. Each one is just expertly framed, and there are all these sweeping aerial scenes, and it's a very beautiful movie. I'm going to show you a couple clips in a minute so you get an idea of the aesthetic of the movie, but it's just gorgeous. It's exactly what you would expect from Peter Jackson. The story is about these two women portrayed by Kate Winslet and Melanie Lynskey. Melanie Lynskey, I am going to talk about, I promise, but I can't lie to you. My focus is Kate Winslet here. But Melanie Lynskey is also a delight. But the two women it's based on, Parker and Hume, I always thought it was Hume. Maybe in the movie it might be. I don't know. Did they say Juliet Hume? Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Maybe I've just always had that wrong. But it turns out, so this isn't a true crime podcast, but I am a little bit of an enthusiast, a true crime enthusiast. I will say that, yeah, these people got together these two girls met when they were 15, 16 years old. They fall into this obsessive relationship. completely obsessive. They're thought to have a homosexual relationship. And this is a time when homosexuality was considered a serious mental illness. This was even beyond the whole pray the gay away kind of thing. This was like, you could find yourself in an institution undergoing things like lobotomies and shock therapy and insulin therapy. I mean, was really a serious deal. The Humes, I guess I'm going to have to break the habit of saying Hume and get into Hume. Were wealthier, and the other, what was the other person's last name? Parker, they were much more working class. So this whole thing takes place in New Zealand. In the movie, Juliet comes from London, but I guess in real life she was actually also Australian. Not also Australian. She was Australian, and Paulina Parker was New Zealander. A New Zealandish, New Zealandic, I don't know, from New Zealand. So I love that as an English teacher, I wrestle with these things, but you don't hear them spoken, so how do you know? Anyway, yes, so they create this rich fantasy world together where they see what they believe is, what they refer to as the fourth dimension, where they've written all these stories about this royal family, and there's this very extensive lineage, and they've got the whole family tree mapped out to this royal family, but they actually believe that together they can see and experience and live in this fourth world with the characters that they've created, right? Which, the imagination of a 15-year-old obsessive love, creating something together and wanting to live there away from the criticism and judgment of, well, all of the psychiatrists and people that they were taken to, psychiatrists and doctors and family members who were saying telling them that they were homosexual and probably gonna go to hell at the very least, but more immediate threat would be being sent to an asylum. Later, I will say that, okay, so Parker and Hume are so obsessed with each other in the movie and in real life that they decided that a great thing to do would be to kill Paulina's mother. They saw her as being kind of the obstacle that was really keeping them away from, preventing them from obtaining this true blissful happiness in the fourth world where they should be living. The only obstacle, as they saw it, was actually Paulina's mother. So hold on one moment, please. That was a timer, if you heard that, alerting me to my falafel. All right. So yes, they saw that her mother was the one thing preventing them from achieving this, from being together. And so they hatched a plan to murder her, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail. But basically they're going on a trip to some scenic, I don't know where exactly it really is, but some scenic overlook, and they decide that they're going to smash her head in with a rock and try to make it look like an accident. Needless to say, this didn't go well. They were both caught and arrested primarily. I think the key evidence against them were all of the letters they had written to each other and all of the stories, all the books. They had created books, like actual books of this this royal family that they had created, and all of the plans to kill her mother were definitely all captured in writing. And yeah, that was the main evidence against them. Interestingly, I will say that it was Victoria Park where it happened. They were going for a walk. Okay. They were both convicted, and I'm just going to read this out here. Prior to the trial, Pauline Parker had been known as Pauline Riper. I'm not sure. But the trial was really sensationalized because there was all this possible lesbianism and insanity and what was going on with these two. And they were even like, they knew that they were too young to be considered for the death penalty. They ended up spending 5 years in prison. And it says some sources say that they were released on the condition that they never contact each other again. But then that's what I always heard and always thought. But then this guy, Sam Barnett, said, the Secretary for Justice was like, no, that was not a condition. Holmes' release was unconditional, and she immediately rejoined her father in Italy, while Parker was placed on 6 months parole in New Zealand, after which she left the country. Most people know, actually, that, I don't know if it's here somewhere. I think we might have to click on them individually, but I can tell you, basically, Juliet Hume later became the somewhat noted author Anne Perry. Anne Perry, I thought I had here, I do. Yes, a long time ago, before I made the connection, I read a couple of her books. My mom had a couple, and I have to say she's a decent author. It's very this kind of turn of the century, very British. What's the detective's name? I don't remember. She's got a series about some detective. Thomas Pitt and William Monk. It's a very Sherlock Holmes and Sherlock and Watson kind of feel to it. But it does have, the books actually, as I recall, did contain, I only read a couple, but they did contain a lot of like ostensibly well-researched detail about what life was like at that time, how they, would go to get the coals for the fire, and just different like details about how things were, life was back then. And it's, the books were actually fairly well written. And now thinking back on them, I wondered, like, interesting that she developed a penchant for murder mysteries of all things, and they're clever enough that it makes you wonder if, like, she didn't spend some time thinking about how we could have done that differently without getting caught. Now, Anne Perry or Juliet Hume has actually said that they were never a lesbian couple. She at some point converted to Mormonism, and I think Parker ended up converting also to like Catholicism, or they both found God in different ways. And kind of, I don't know, showed remorse, or I don't know how exactly, exactly how it seems like for Juliet, at least, life really went on and she continued to flourish. But Paulina's character, I think, not character, as a person, as a real life person, she, as far as I understand, kind of led a very quiet, unassuming, under the radar kind of life. Because, you kill your mom and there might be a little bit of stigma against that. At any rate, yeah, the movie itself is gorgeous. And again, I have to say, I had a copy of this from a friend of mine who I guess maybe I shouldn't, I won't name just out of respect, but a friend of mine gifted me a copy of this that might not have, like, before it might have been slightly bootlegged. I don't know. And I don't know that she ever realized the impact that this movie had on me, but it really did. It was the moment that I fell in love with Kate Winslet. Honestly, followed by The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And yeah, it's a thing that happened. I mean, when I first saw this movie in 1994, I still, when I watch it, I can still feel exactly how much, like, I relate to Pauline's character. She's shy, she's awkward, she's not very popular, she's sick, she's misunderstood. Nope, she doesn't really have a lot of friends, and then here comes Juliet, who is just, I've got to say, at 15 or 16, man, Paulina, I get it. I also would have fallen desperately in love with Juliet. And I mean, I don't think I actually would have killed my mother, but I maybe would have thought about it, because they create such a beautiful fucking world together. And just to give you an idea, again, this is like the kind of aesthetic of the film, and the moment, you can almost see the moment where in this clip where Pauline just falls in love with Juliet, and it's a very beautiful, innocent kind of thing. It's very artless and they're young, you know, but it's very pure, and I really appreciate it. Also, the scene starts with it's one of the things that she says, and that the Juliet, or Kate Winslet's character, says in the film that I love the most. So I'm going to play that for you really quickly. Let's bring it back. Back it up now. Oh, and it's not going to let me do that. Balls. All right. From the first line, from the very first line.
It's all frightfully romantic.
All right. So definitely you get the idea there of this whole rich world of imagination and dress up and costumery and falafel. Again, the timer indicating that falafel needs to be attended to. So let's just take care of that. Did you guys know that falafel is a little bitch? You cook it for 1 minute too long and suddenly, oh, I'm not edible anymore. You know what, falafel? I'm putting you straight in the category with avocados and bananas. I love you. This is why I don't cook. Not that you would cook avocados, or I guess you could cook bananas. Fried bananas? Maybe that's a thing. All right. So basically, I was pretty much done with Heavenly Creatures. We all know where that goes based on the true story. They murder the mother, they're caught, they do time, they both find God, you know, the huge. But I did want to show you a couple of little clips. The first one, just because Kate Winslet is so good in this movie, and I just want to show you why I absolutely would have fallen madly in love with her. Again, Paulina, I really understand. I do, girl. I feel you. And the second one I'm going to show you is actually because it's them discovering what they call the fourth world, and that's going to lead to our magical topic for this evening. So, also my neighbors are being so fucking loud. I don't know what's going on up there. I'm hoping they're moving, because generally speaking, they're assholes. Anyway, I say without further ado every fucking time. Let's go ahead and show you this first clip here. should be here, ready to go.
Well, I'll leave you to it, Miss Waller. Juliet?
You can sit over here, Juliet. We use French names in this class. You can choose your own. Now, irregular verbs in the present subjunctive. Je doutais qu'il vienne.
Excuse me, Miss Waller, you've made a mistake. Je doutais qu'il vienne is in fact the spoken subjunctive.
It is customary to stand when addressing a teacher. Antoinette.
You should have written va.
Oh. I must have copied it incorrectly from my notes.
You don't need to apologize, Miss Waller. I found it frightfully difficult myself until I got the hang of it.
Thank you, Juliet. Open your textbook to page 17.
You have to love the smartass who is smarter than the teacher. I mean, I always do. Also, gonna give Melanie credit there. She really, that look, not that look, but the one when Juliet corrects the teacher, it's very well done. So the second one, the second clip that I have here is actually them, like I said, discovering the fourth world. And this is where we're going to start talking about the Folie deux. I just want to say really quickly, I find it very comical that I oftentimes end up, it's like this is the fourth episode where I've tried to pronounce French, and the best I can fucking do is Pepe Le Pew. So here we go. But anyway, this is technically a DSM-IV shared psychotic disorder, but it's fucking fascinating. And I do think it's quite magical. So we're going to get there momentarily. Until then, I'm wondering if you can hear this cacophony. It's not even, it's a fucking ruckus is what it is from upstairs. It's driving me mad. I've got to teach a class in a minute too. You fuckers, I swear to God, I'm going to start warring with my neighbors. All right. No, not what I meant to do.
Come with me.
Today, Juliet and I discovered the key to the fourth world. We have had it in our possession for about 6 months, but we only realized it on the day of the death of Christ. We saw a gateway through the clouds. Everything was full of peace and bliss. We then realized we had the key. We now know we're not genii, as we thought. We have an extra part of our brain which can appreciate the fourth world. Only about 10 people have it. When we die, we will go to the fourth world. But meanwhile, on 2 days every year, we may use the key and look into that beautiful world which we have been lucky enough to be allowed to know of on this day of finding the key to the way through the clouds.
Brilliant. Okay. What I find very interesting about this is for a delusion, and granted, delusions can be incredibly detailed and tactile and other things, but it's such a systematic, and it's hydromatic. Well, it's grease. No, okay, and God damn it. Okay, so it's grease lightning. No, okay. But the fact that also that they found it on they found it on the day of the death of Christ, that there's some, however tenuous, some kind of larger framework from which this is derived or into which it fits fascinates me. Also because I mean, they just have there are definitely rules in place. They can access it twice a year. They'll go there when they die. And so really what they've created is technically, I think, more magical thinking. But at what point the line there of demarcation is so nebulous. It really is. Usually with Folie à deux, and just to point out, it can be it could be a Folie à trois, and a Folie and Familia in Spanish. I don't know how to say it in French. Anyway, it can be a mass hysteria, like what we saw in The Devils. Remember the Ken Russell film The Devils with Vanessa Redgrave was based on a real town in 17th century France in which these women in the cloister did believe that the new priest had created a diabolical pact with the devil and was bewitching them, and they all went fucking crazy. Things like this have been noted, and if you look at cases like legitimate cases of Folie à deux, sorry, there are a few cases of it. We'll look at a little bit. We can kind of peruse some of those later, but you've probably heard of some of these. Ian and Maya, if anybody who knows true crime has probably heard a few of these. You've probably heard of Britain's notorious child killers, the Moors murders. Ursula and Sabina Eriksson are also, there's actually video of that one. It's fucking insane. And they were sisters, so it's not always a lover situation. But what I will say here is I do think that, so it is still contested. You know, Juliet later recanted, or she didn't recant, but she said, you know, we had an obsessive relationship, but we weren't lesbians. And of course, you know, it makes sense to me that they would say that after everything, you know, that they had been through at that point, and trying to distance themselves from the situation as much as possible. However, if they were having sex, especially like that first young love, kind of really super intense sexual energy can be very, very, I mean, sexual energy in general can be incredibly powerful. And so I think that it's a form of magic. Sex magic is a thing, and it's alchemy in and of itself. And so I do think that if we added that sexual energy to their already obsessive relationship, to their rich fantasy life, and their stories that they were writing were all incredibly detailed as well. All these things coalescing to create this fantastical, magical thought, or perhaps a shared delusion, totally makes sense to me. I'm really wondering how much of it was psychosis and how much of it, if you think about it this way too, these two girls were also trying to escape the mores of society, like these strict societal impositions of, again, y'all, homosexuality was considered an insanity. I mean, and so it really could have wound them up in a dark kind of bedlam place. And that's no fucking joke. So wanting to free themselves of that or escape from that by whatever means no matter how dubious, I think that seems completely natural to me. The whole thing is frightfully relatable in my opinion. Also, just a side note here about me personally, I mean, they say that it's impossible to share a dream with somebody, but I have twice with two different people. And, you know, as fantastic as that might sound, I do think that this whole concept, I think this is why this concept of Folie à deux really fascinates me so much because it's that perfect intersection between madness and magic. I'm going to pause there for a moment. Elephants, they're bowling elephants up there. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. All right, let's talk just a little bit more about this Folie deux, which when I introduced you to it, I actually said I'm not sure if the two women from Heavenly Girls, they were 15 or 16, from Heavenly Creatures actually classified. But then looking down here a little bit more closely, it is right here, the Parker Hume murder case. What's interesting about that, it says here that the intense, where did I read the other one? Whoa, this right here. I don't know how I feel about this because I don't know what the person is trying to say exactly, but the two teenage friends reinforced the shared fantasy world of the two teenage friends reinforced and exacerbated the mental illness that led to murder. Maybe, but is this person saying that the mental illness was homosexuality? Because if that's the case, they could fuck right off. They just fuck right off with that one. I don't know. However, so yes, I guess I'm not the only person to have thought of this. They don't say any, I mean, it's not the most popular theory. It's not like in the tagline about the movie or anything. It's just something that I happen to, be interested in, that I thought about. At any rate, how this usually goes, I've found with, let's keep looking at pictures of Kate. How this usually goes, I found, is that one person is the more dominant, in the delusion and influences, that's fucking gorgeous, the second person. That seems to be the most common recipe, I guess we'll say. What a recipe. I don't know what accent is supposed to be. Italian? What? Come on. Anyway, but it can also happen, as it says here, that, well, I mean, even if the dominant person is influencing the other person has to be predisposed to delusions. There has to be either some organic chemistry, makeup, constitution there, or something that allows that. Now, in some cases, I have to say, from my experiences with this, I've either been sober, stoned, or on lots of hallucinogens. I have shared many hallucinations with other people where we're both describing the same thing at the same time. Okay, yeah, we were on LSD, and that doesn't really surprise me. But if you think about it this way, remember in Heavenly Creatures, when she was describing the fourth world, and she said, we actually realized we're able to access different parts of our mind, like that most humans can't access. And I think that's exactly what it's even proven that that's what DMT and psilocybin, well, everything contains DMT, but that is what it does to you. That's what LSD and psilocybin and DMT and these drugs, they actually open pathways to your brain to access different parts of your brain that you don't normally access. So I think it's interesting. I can't say that, there's, I obviously did not know either of these women, and don't know what kind of hallucinations or fantasies or other things they had or didn't have. There's no reported drug use of them or by them, but who really knows? So the other thing they do make a second distinction, though, that it can be two people they're suffering from their own independent psychotic, or not necessarily psychotic, but from their own independent delusions. And then they come together and their delusions play nice. Basically, their demons play nicely together. Their delusions play nicely together, and they're able to kind of create a shared delusion. How you would be able to suss that out as a psychiatrist, I'm not really sure. It's like kind of a little bit more complex than just determining, like, what do they call it? Like patient zero or whatever. One thing I was looking at here that I don't know. Okay, so we are talking again, just to point out, this is from Psychology Today, these different types of delusions that I'm looking at right here. And again, this is a psychiatric disorder that is noted in the DSM. So at the DSM-5 even. So strictly speaking, we might not be talking about magic, but what do you think when you, and I mentioned previously that I have actually shared the same dream with a person. And what I want to say about that, actually, sorry, it's happened twice now that I will tell you about one of them. I will not say the person's name just in case for privacy issues, but we were sleeping together in the same bed. And this was somebody that I had a experimental sexual relationship with, but it was not, anyway, we were young and we slept in the same bed. Stuff happens. We're girl. That's what happens with girls. You put us in the same bed and eventually, anywho, I had a dream, and the whole like atmosphere and the buildings that we were in and the dream and everything that we described to each other was just exact. Sparing you some of that detail. Basically, I was in a room with multiple hospital beds and I was going from patient to patient, injecting them with heroin. The person that I was sleeping with or next to had the same dream, but she was going from patient to patient, withdrawing their blood. Now, I mean, I don't have an explanation for this. But she and I were very close. I also, with this person, you know, I've referred to her as my soul sister. With this person, she and I together experienced the death of a very close friend of ours. I mean, he took us on his death trip. And I mean, you know, we witnessed it completely. It was a complete, like, immersive experience. And were we smoking and drinking? Sure. We were at his memorial at Machine Works. Some of you know exactly who I'm talking about. Other people witnessed us experiencing this. And I think people knew that we were experiencing something kind of extraordinary. Are we crazy? I don't know. We're probably both pretty good candidates for that. Not gonna lie. But I will say also, gosh, I mean, I don't know. I've also experienced things. There was another time that I experienced something that might be described as paranormal. It really legitimately might be described as paranormal with 3 other people. All 4 of us experienced the same thing and we're just saw the same thing. We're describing it at the same time. And this thing was able to physically manipulate me to the point where the other 3 people had to form a human chain anchoring themselves to the door to grab me and pull me back. I couldn't move. Something was pushing me down. And so were people smoking and drinking then too? Yes. Yeah. All but one of us was definitely really stoned. I was going to say probably, but no, that definitely. So when we're talking about these things, it seems so bizarre and so out there, especially when you see some of these cases down here. You're like, yeah, but to the point of murder, really? I don't know. Like, again, look at all the factors previously mentioned. Look at the fact that they were, why do I have her twice? Oh, okay. The fact that they were isolated and in an obsessive relationship, probably in love in a time when that was forbidden, being kept apart for no good reason other than, well, their sexual orientation, their suspected homosexuality. So these are things that I think could definitely impact and create just the perfect breeding ground for this, really. It actually even does say here, where was I looking at it? Oh, the causes. It does say people who are socially isolated together tend to become dependent on those they are with, leading to an inducer's influence on those around them. So again, the ground is fertile here for this. Interestingly, stress is also a factor, and the threat of pulling these two girls who had such a deep obsessive relationship, pulling them away, they were going to send Juliet to South Africa and leave Pauline in New Zealand. That was very stressful for them, and that does real things in your body, increasing levels of dopamine, and it actually, you know, which is a stress hormone. Well, actually, it releases cortisol into the body, which is a stress hormone, which then triggers the level of dopamine. So there are physiological things here, occurrences, but it's really, when you see someone, like, if you are interested in this and you want to read about the case of Ursula and Sabina Eriksson, there is actual video footage of them walking in front of traffic. Actually, they run in front of traffic. They're trying to evade the police, not because they're guilty, but because they're convinced that the police are going to steal their organs. And it's fucking crazy. And you see it happen on camera, and you think, God, this is a particularly fascinating case. If you're interested in Folie, I would point you in that direction. Yeah, so there are physiological effects. And sorry, biopsychosocial, biopsychosocial. Okay. What does that mean? Well, I guess it means it has negative health outcomes such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity. Okay. Anyway, what I thought was interesting here, I was trying to point out that it had physiological effects, like, because it does. Yeah, the stress and the dopamine and the cortisol and all that can be linked into that. But what I was reading about these different types of delusions, and it's pretty fascinating because they have 4 distinct categories. Bizarre delusions are the ones where I'm just going to read you the example of each one's, like the people who actually do think that they're going to have their organs replaced by somebody. Like I just said, this is a bizarre delusion, or like waking up and thinking that they've been transplanted, like they've had some kind of surgery involving transplantation. Transplantation is really common. It's weird that there are like tropes with these too. It just makes me wonder how much we're influenced by popular culture in general, but excuse me. Then the non-bizarre delusions, which I don't know if they're really any less bizarre. This is like, basically, when I read this, I'm like, oh, amphetamine psychosis is what they're talking about, which some of you might be familiar with. This is when you're playing Window Warriors. You're convinced that the FBI is across the street watching you. No, shut the fuck up. That's a church. That's why they're wearing suits. You know, like, come on. I've experienced that, and then a variety. I myself have never succumbed to amphetamine psychosis. Like, I've had auditory hallucinations and stuff from being awake for too long, but this is in the distant past, over 20 years ago. But I know a lot of people who have suffered these sorts of delusions. Yes, way too many. Mood congruent. Sorry, I'm having the worst allergy attack. I really am. I'm really impressed with how real life Pando coming at you right now. This particular episode, you've heard me shouting over construction. You've heard me dying of allergy attacks. This is bringing the real life to you, baby. The non-congruent is something. This is kind of where I think they fall with their fourth world theory. So I'm going to read this one a little more closely. I'm going to read this one more closely. Okay, listen up, y'all. It corresponds to Jesus Christ, person's emotions within a given time frame, especially during an episode of mania or depression. For example, someone with this type of delusion may believe with certainty that they will win $1 million at the casino on a specific night, despite lacking any way to see the future or influence the probability. This is kind of like them knowing with certainty that they have access to this other part of their brain, and they now have the key to the kingdom of the clouds of whatever they called it, and that they can visit there twice a year on this, which, you know, this is the power that they've discovered on this, the day of Christ, of the death of Christ, and the belief that they will go there. They're very certain that this is where they're going when they die, and that they're certain of the rules of this, and the chance of it. So, and it does kind of seem like they're in almost a manic, a state of mania when they first, and that opening scene when Kate is pulling her, you know, to come with me. It seems a little bit manic. So that's the closest I could put it at. The other one is a mood neutral delusion. And it can be bizarre or non-bizarre. This one, it seems pretty vague. It says an example would be a person who is convinced that somebody has switched bodies with their neighbor. That sounds bizarre to me. I don't know. Anyway, but I'm not going to get into the whole like minutia and like the small differentiations, because I'm not a psychiatrist, and that's not really what this is about. What this is about is really the belief that people can experience extraordinary things together. And yeah, I mean, if they had never met, would they have attached to somebody else? It's a very curious thing, and I tie it all in, you know, winding it up in my mind with the idea of intimacy and sex magic, and being able to like form this kind of union with another person that transcends the physicality and the mortal experience that we know here on this plane on the daily. At any rate, those are my thoughts about that subject. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and stop there for that. All right, witches, you have been down with me, Anarchy, for yet another episode of Maidens and Magick. That was great for me. I actually really enjoyed that. That movie is close to my heart. I've long been curious about this whole concept of Folie à deux. So, yeah, party on. I'm going to keep it coming and dropping an episode every week until somebody stops me. And you really can't stop me. You really can't. I don't have anything else to say to you except please keep coming back. I'm having a great time bringing these to you. I hope you're enjoying them. And let's see, what's that other thing I always say? Oh, yes, stay witchy. Bye.